iRacing, you wanted the best, you got them 4 abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated, the greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
The mice come out to play. Up until Silverstone, only Diaz and Acosta had won races this season. With neither of them attending round 6, the long-suffering Christopher Pfeffer stepped up to the plate and took his first victory. Sadly for those above him in the points, that meant it wasn't as big of a points haul as they could have hoped for. Will that be someone's missed opportunity for the crown when we reach the finale? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 7 of the PRL GTE Sportscar Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Samuel Ryman. Behind the scenes is our director Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Spanish tracks are plentiful in the real world, but here on iRacing, we've only just gotten the first one on the service this year. It's fitting that Barcelona took maiden honors, with it being perhaps the nation's most famous circuit. But we always have newcomers and perhaps the uninitiated watching. So let's take a moment to learn a little bit more about this track. Welcome to Circuit de Barcelona. The home of the Spanish Grand Prix for nearly 30 years, it's easy to forget that this is a relatively recently built track in Europe. It's known for its long, sweeping corners and hosts the highest level of open wheel and motorcycle racing. Placing an emphasis on a good aerodynamic setup with high downforce cars, it's often overlooked that it offers plenty of overtaking for lower tier racing as well. In fact, most don't take into account that this adaptable track has 5 different layouts to choose from. These range from the nearly 3-mile-long Grand Prix version to the minuscule 1-mile club circuit. Because of the pit straight being the longest acceleration zone, Elf is the most likely spot for drivers to get it past them. After that, your next hope might be into La Caixa, which, depending on which layout you use, could be a sharpened set of 2 turns or one long hairpin with an opening radius. In the early 2000s, a chicane was added close to the end of the lap, but the old Europcar corner can still be run. The Spanish fans have some gorgeous views from the many hills dotted along the track. And with the international fame this place has built over time, it's no wonder they're almost always full come race day. see some of the awesome views that we have around this track. Some really beautiful hillsides and trees that line this place. But Sam, the drivers aren't worried about the trees or the scenery. They're worried about the black stuff in between it. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya is, I think it's a fairly new circuit, actually. It goes back to the early 1990s, and we're racing on their historic configuration. So Formula One fans rejoice. That means we're not doing that silly little chicane at the end of a lap. We're going flat out through that right-hand door. Probably not flat out in these cars. Going to have to lift a little bit, but that should create for some good battles on down the front straight and a very fast pace race here today. Joe, you and I were covering a touring car race here a couple of weeks ago, and we saw plenty of great racing during that race, and hopefully we're going to see more of that today.
Yeah, looking forward to that. And we are actually, even though the graphic shows a historic course, we are actually on the GP course today. So sorry for those who don't like the modern Formula One layout that has the chicane in there. That is what we are actually running. There is reason to rejoice for this series because, as always, it's brought to you by SIMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. They're also bridging virtual and real motorsports by providing a network between these two, involving sim racers, real drivers, teams, managers, engineers, and of course, motorsport fans alike. You can find out more about how you can get involved at simsa.net. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products create an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. The winner of Division 1 here in the PRL GTE Sports Car Series will get a Butt Kicker Game or 2 or a simulation kit. Also, both drivers of the winning team and the team's championship will get a free t-shirt. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Let's take a glance at the championship. So let's see how things are shaping up in the drivers now that we've had the missed week for our two championship leaders. And of course, unfortunately, with the drop weeks, Diaz and Acosta are still at about the same distance ahead of Eisler. Because he only finished fourth, I believe he only gained about 2 points on the pair of them, since they each got 26 drop points last round. They now have 0 drop points, though. So if they have another missed race, which so far it looks like Diaz might be missing today, that will be a 0 for them. Holland and Leif Peterson round out your top 5 in that battle for the championship up towards the top. Let's take a look at the team standing as well. Sam, how's that facing us?
Oh, it's still close at the top, even after several rounds we've put on the board now between Punto CL Racing and Mivano Racing. You have a massive drop back to RSR Esport all the way back in third, but I'm sure they're pleased to be in third because they're holding on to that fairly snugly right now ahead of V-Power Racing, but that could all change within a race or two. One Sim GTR White trying to get in that mix. They're sitting 115 points back of the leader and 43 points back of third in the standings.
If you've not watched the PRL GTE Sports Car Series before, let's run you down how today's race exactly is going to go. We're on round 7 out of 10. There's that little droplet to represent the one drop week that we mentioned in the points. So the worst result will not count towards the points. There's the 4 different cars that they are allowed to use in this series, and the races are 60 minutes long. They have an open setup, but there will be at least one pit stop during this race. They have an incident cap as well at about 20. There's a lot of paved runoff around here, so they can rack those up relatively easily. And there you can see the bonus points that they can earn for the fastest lap, the pole, or 3 incidents or less. They're working on that pole position bonus right now. As always, you are watching this series on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and subscribe when you get the opportunity. It's pretty easy to do that. All you got to do is click the big red button that says subscribe. And you won't miss a moment here on the GSRC's coverage of the PRL GTE Sports Car Series. Also, if you're a fan of GSRC and you're looking for a little bit of gear to help show your support, Well, that also is pretty easy. You just go to our merch store. We have things such as t-shirts. Those have actually been made of sword-resistant Kevlar. I understand this was requested by one of our Renaissance Fair attending fans who thought that might be a good idea and quite useful to them. We'll see whether or not it is useful and how well that sells. But in the meantime, if you want a bit of that or maybe other gear for yourself, you can check it out in the link below at gsrc.storeenvy.com. Right now in qualifying, we've got Abner Acosta up on the provisional pole. No surprises there. And it is Christopher Pfeffer who's trying to give chase today. Sam, you pointed out without Diaz here. Wonder if this is Pfeffer's chance to finally take it to Acosta.
Yeah, it could be. It will be interesting seeing their battle. You mentioned how Diaz might lose out a little bit in the points at this round, and I was going to say, as Acosta actually getting involved in a little bit of an incident in track and qualifying right now. I was going to say that Diaz might not lose out on too much points, of course, if Acosta has a bad race. And a moment ago, he was third on the qualifying standings, but now he's got himself back up to the top of qualifying standings, which, of course, is not good news for Diaz. But Pfeffer's there in second, and Eisler's there in third right now, as we've got 4 minutes left in this qualifying session. And you can see the track really throwing a few curveballs at these drivers, Joe. It's quite new on the service, so a lot of these drivers might not have raced here before. If they have, maybe only done 1 or 2 races. So this could still trick a few of them up today.
Yeah, it certainly has its difficulties as we watch Pfeffer come across the line another time, but that lap didn't count. He must have had an offer. Maybe that was an out lap of his own. Bacigalupo, who unfortunately had a little bit of a run-in with Eisler last round. He got a speeding penalty when he entered the pits because he got bumped from behind. And right now he's sitting 6th. But before that bump, he was looking very good. So I wonder if he can come back and try and redeem himself here. His latest lap, also one that didn't count, it seems, for him. Eisler actually bumped down as well. Looks like Garrido goes up to 3rd and Holland falls to 4th.
Yeah, things were looking really good for Eisler just a couple moments ago. And these times up front, Joe, are really close. If Eisler were to find just 0.2 of a second, he would jump all the way up to pole. That being said, Abner Acosta ran a lap time in practice 0.3 of a second faster than his provisional pole sitting time that he's on right now. He's just gone back out there on a new set of tyres after having a minor incident on track a couple moments ago. He's got a clear racetrack ahead of him, so this will be interesting to see how low Acosta can set the bar, and that will definitely make him the guy to beat if he can repeat on this time.
Cal Quinn also coming around. He's jumped up to 7th. But he's not going to jump any higher because he was, a long ways off of his last lap on that time by. So we come back to Eisler now as he comes out of New Holland and across the line. He needs to beat a 39.97, and it looks like another one that didn't count for him, too. Off track's already causing problems. Whoa, and Pfeffer takes the best lap. The 66 up to the top.
Yeah, and that is the fastest time we've seen, not only in this qualifying session, but in this service session. It beats Acosta's practice time by a couple of hundredths. But like I said, Acosta's out there trying to set a hot lap of himself right now, as we see Garrido, who is sitting in 3rd place right now. Garrido's definitely been an interesting driver to watch throughout this season. Here's the number 77 car of James Hebb coming around the final turn. He currently sits all the way down in 15th position. A large field here, though, Joe. About 30 cars, so 15th, not a bad place to qualify.
Yeah, that's solidly mid-pack. Now, Abner Acosta is coming back around, but he is right now stuck behind Dunnigan, and Dunnigan's going to pull off and let him through. So the number 5 has a clear track to try and pick up the pace, but was he held up by Dunnigan during that part? It wasn't faster, 39.9. So Abner still has to make up those 0.3, and this is going to be his last opportunity as we've only got 50 seconds left.
Yeah, and the track temperature is 89 degrees Fahrenheit, so a little bit on the cool end here, Joe. It's fairly late in the day, virtual racing time, as I like to call it. We're actually qualifying here at 6:30 p.m. So I don't think this racetrack has lights, but fortunately, it's only a 1-hour race, so hopefully we won't have to worry about complete darkness.
There's a couple lights here and there, but these cars have headlights, so not really too much of an issue. Ratio Cal Quinn looking to come around through Lakaija, checking to see if any of our front runners are getting ready to finish their laps as the clock ticks down to 0. A lot of our drivers are actually abandoning their laps here at the end of the circuit. Carollo is going to try and improve, who's just ahead of Cal Quinn that we're watching right now, but Carollo does not improve as he has an issue at the end. So Cal Quinn comes across the line and also not going to find any more time on that lap. Leif Peterson instead down in 18th, coming around New Holland. This has been a very tricky circuit for this qualifying session for a number of drivers. For him, it is an improvement of 40.7, and that's up to 10th. That's a big jump.
And Acosta out of a final turn right now, talking about that cool track temp where he's had the second lap now to warm his tyres up, but he's been off track and it will not count.
What about Christian Eisler? He's going to be the next one to cross the line. Comes up through Europe car and through the final chicane. Very tricky little corner. When he's already not looking so hot through there. And in fact, he knows it. He's going to come into the pits and is going to settle for 5th place.
Calkin pulling it to a halt too. A few drivers at the end of the session. Watch another car across the line here. A few drivers do opt to come down pit road when the clock clicks to 0, because you do have to make a pit stop during the race, and you want to see how much you can get out of that pit entry.
Thurman, the last one to get a time in, and he goes quicker. That's going to be 14th place for the number 69 car. But that settles our field for today. So let's go through our starting order. It's going to be Christopher Pfeffer coming back after the victory to take another pole, his second pole in a row, actually. And that'll be a bonus point for him. Abner Acosta returns after his absence and will be in second. Third goes to Diego Garrido, who's also been away for a while, though he's caused a little bit of ire from some of the drivers. David Holland starts in P4 with Christian Eisler on the inside of row 3. Lucas Bacigalupo starts in 6. Horatio Cal Quinn will be P7. Ted Lowendick starts 8th. Then you've got Sean Romig in 9th position, and we saw Leif Peterson at the very end manage to jump up to 10th.
Lars Mitchell will roll off from 11th place ahead of Garcia Rodriguez-Redes, who will be starting in 12th. Luis Henriquez will start in 13th position ahead of Brett Thurman. Lyndon Swaby will start 15th ahead of Jesper Dralica, rounding out row number 8. James Hebb will start from 17th place ahead of Stacey Dunnigan. And John Ambrose, a bit further back in the field from what we're used to seeing him, he starts 19th ahead of Don Bowden.
Jeff Carolla will be 21st. Then you've got Kenny Rodriguez in the 22nd position. Sean Duhamel in 23rd will be followed by James LeBlanc in 24th. Timothy Hargrave starts P25. On his outside, it is Christopher Albright. Last 2 cars, and all 28 of them did get laps in here in qualifying. It's Donald Olson and Gary Schilling. We should see all of them grid up because I see all still in the session here currently. A very full field here today as we wait for that rolling start to get going. Typically in F1, we see it very difficult to pass, but these cars aren't quite as downforce dependent. Sam, do you think it's still going to be as tough to try and get around one another around here?
Well, now that I know we have that chicane at the end of a lap, that makes things a little bit tougher. I'll tell you one thing that doesn't get talked about as much as it should during races here, Joe, and that is I feel that the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya has a perfect front straight length. Like there's some tracks where it's so long, like Road America or Baku that you kind of, have to time your passes on the car in front. You can't go too early because they'll just get you back and they're swerving and everything. And then there's some front straights that's so short that you can't do anything with them. Barcelona's that perfect length, and then you got that 90-degree right-hander at the start. It makes it a great passing opportunity up there. But the other thing is it makes it great for race starts, and it's going to be critical here which driver gets a better start out of Pfeffer and Acosta. Now, of course, it being a rolling start, Pfeffer is required to cross the start line first. But I think we're about to see something big here, Joe. Let's assume Diaz doesn't come back for the rest of the season for whatever reason. Hopefully he does. This could be for, not only bragging rights, but control of this championship. Who is going to win today? Pfeffer, Acosta, or someone else?
Good point. We didn't really dwell as much on that single point separating Acosta and Diaz. And Acosta is going to pull greatly ahead, but very early start here for Pfeffer, who gets the green flag as we are now racing for round 7 of the PRL GTE Sports Car Series. There's that draft you were talking about. Under attack, Acosta has Garrido looking to his inside, while Acosta is also thinking about trying to attack on our leader, but instead he has to go to defense as they go side by side through 1 and 2, and they come together already. Garrido turned around, a couple more cars get into him. It looks like...
That was Eisler.
Oh, wow. So that's going to affect our championship. Meanwhile, up front, Acosta keeps going. Bacigalupo inherits third, who is under attack from fourth place, Holland. Behind them, there's a mess of cars.
Yeah, that was... Garrido made a very aggressive move at the start, and Acosta, I don't think, appreciated it and tried to race him hard out of the chicane and just overdid it. He got into the back of the lead, returned Garrido and Eisler. Frontal collision between those two cars. Fortunately, this is just sim racing, but even though that's not going to damage Eisler physically, it is going to damage him in the points.
A real shame, and but a boon to Acosta right now as we've been watching the field continue to work their way around the first lap. We'll come back to the replay in a little bit. A bit ago, we were watching Lee Peterson. He's still fighting with Fredes. This is down for 8th position. Awful tight together as they come up to Europe car, and briefly it looks like Peterson's going to have control of that fight.
Yeah, so Peterson leading through the chicane here. Now, one nice thing about these GT cars, of course, is they're not as aerodynamically dependent as open-wheel cars, so Fredes can tuck it right up the rear wing of Peterson, and if he gets the draft, he can try and make a move stick on the inside down into the first corner, but I don't think his run was good enough, and Peterson's going to hold on to that 8th position for now. The top 7 in front of him not battling for position, and a 1.5 second gap between our two leaders.
Yeah, it really is the tightest where we're watching right now. Fred is going a little wide up through Renault. Eventually keeps it from understeering too far out and stays with Peterson as now they slow up for Repsol. Worth noting that both Eisler and Garrido did have to take a tow from that incident. And I think we've got that replay ready since things have calmed down a little bit. So let's take a glance, see if we can dissect this a little bit. I know we make a big deal about Garrido being aggressive and having a history of contact, but did he get turned? Is this more on Acosta this time, potentially?
I think it is on Acosta. I think Acosta wasn't happy with what Garrido did to him down the front straight, but I mean, Garrido didn't really do anything wrong here. They rubbed up against each other. Now, of course, I don't think Acosta intended to turn his competitor there and cause a massive crash. I think he was just kind of racing him hard, saying, no, I want second position and I'm not going to let you have it. And unfortunately, they just got a bit too close.
Yeah, watching that one from above like we saw there, it did look like a bit of a racing incident because Garrido could have gone a little wider out. And you could have argued that maybe also Acosta could have stayed tighter in on the exit of turn 2. But now that we come back live and we look at our leaders coming through 1, 2, and 3, you can see that Pfeffer is starting to repeat what he did last round. 2 seconds between himself and Acosta. Instead, it is Bacigalupo, again, hunting for a podium.
Well, of course, Acosta could be carrying a little bit of damage. So some chaos and carnage throughout the middle of the field, which of course involved Acosta too. Maybe he might decide to short pit.
Yeah, Dunnigan, I think, with an issue on Elf, the first corner. And was this Heb as well? Yeah, James Heb is going to get into Dunnigan. Although Dunnigan, wow, okay, so the comedy of errors here, because Dunnigan starts to slide and Heb outbrakes himself at the same time. And both of their mistakes meet in the same place. One more time here on the replay. Wow, and that was a pretty severe hit between them. Heb is still going. Dunnigan looks to be also rolling once again, so neither of them took a tow, but probably with some severe damage due to that. As we head over to 8th position, this is what we were watching before. Leif Peterson fighting with Fredes. They are still one of our closest fights and haven't been able to separate from one another. Cal Quinn just ahead of them. They've been starting to gain on the number 666.
Yeah, Fredes has been one of our bigger movers here early on, especially towards the front end of the field. One of our movers who deserves a shout out is John Ambrose. We mentioned he didn't get the qualifying performance that we're used to him having, but he has recovered from that. He's starting 19th and he's currently running in 14th. Unfortunately, I think he's had a couple of issues this season with not being able to bring it home from that change today.
We watch he and his teammate work their way around. I wonder if we could go back to Peterson, because there was a big slide from him through Seat, and I think Fredes is going to try and take advantage of it. Once again, getting close as a tiny mistake from Peterson down through Worth. This continues to reel in the number 96, edging him closer and closer to an opportunity as he take it here down into Lakaja. This is one of the popular places to pass. As close as he is, Sam just doesn't seem like he's ready yet.
This is already showing how it's tricky to pass here, Joe. Of course, as we mentioned, you can try and make a pass in the pits if you can't do it out there on track. We also have a scrap building up for second place. Acosta, I don't know if he made a mistake earlier this lap, but as they come out onto the front straight, Basti Kalupo is not too far behind him.
Watching from Lucas's view as he rides in the tire tracks of Abner Acosta, but the number 5 once again is going to remain safe by the time they hit the braking. A little deep into the corner, but certainly no pass attempt possible for the number 23. We follow them around Renault as well.
Yeah, so again, he's within striking range, you just can't strike really. Yeah, Acosta called up a couple of tenths on Fev a couple of laps ago, and then he dropped back another half a second last lap. So it's wavering at about 2 seconds between those two. I don't know if that's Fefa being more consistent and Acosta making more mistakes, or just the nature of racing. But right now, I don't think Acosta's going to be much faster while he's having to worry about defending from behind.
The good news for Acosta is it certainly seems like drivers are struggling a bit to try and make overtakes today. So defense might be a little bit easier than offense. Something going on with Swaby here as he's in a battle with Bowden. This is for 14th position. Let's understand that recently we actually had John Ambrose get by Lennon, his teammate. So that promotes him to 13th now. I imagine that Swaby didn't really... as Holland is off. Sorry, one of our top runners just went around coming out of the final chicane, and he's trying to find his way back on track. Eventually he gets to the pavement, but look at how many had to go by him.
Yeah, he was in 4th. He's now all the way down to 16th. That cost him 12 positions, and we're about to find out what happened.
Ooh, that curb Those are some really tall sausage curves in places around here. I wondered if they'd be a problem for our drivers, Sam.
Yep, well, they are. But you know what? If they exist, these are the kind of turns they belong on, the slow speed turns where they don't risk launching the car in the air, really. I mean, it obviously didn't give Holland a whole lot of grip, but it's a punishment you pay for making a mistake.
Just in front of him as well, he might get an opportunity because look at the tight battle that's between Bowden and Swaby and Carollo. They come out towards Campsa. Let's see if Bowden can get himself set up on this run down towards Lakaija. Way wide out for Swaby, trying to use as much of the track as possible. And he's got a slowdown penalty because of it. He gives up both spots as Carollo takes a peek to the inside of Bowden with the distraction, but it doesn't pay off. And that's going to give Don the 13th spot.
I feel like I'm getting deja vu here, Joe. I'm starting to realise I think this is the way Jeff Carullo normally approaches races. I recall a couple of races where he's finished much higher than he qualifies, so for whatever reason he's either not good at qualifying or loves passing cars, and he's might be able to get another one here.
Awful close to Jeff. Excuse me, to Bowden, rather. As he now comes out to the inside. He's got the slipstream that he wanted. He's got the momentum, but he's not fully alongside. He's going to have to be very late on the brakes, and he is. Can he get it woed up? Beautiful move. Wonderful job by the number 52, and now he takes 13th away.
That's how it's done. There's possible. Obviously, there's different car manufacturers in this series, and so, you know, depending on how your car's set up and what kind of car you have, it might be easier for some drivers to make passes than others. But like I say, it's definitely possible for Jeff.
It's possible for Ambrose. He's also made some overtakes. He's up to 12th, and the double lot now is spying Elijah Mitchell, Luis Enriquez, and a little bit up the road, Brett Thurman as well, all in a row. Let's see if he can get one more here. Following behind Mitchell, he's not going to duck out. That Shell Ferrari is going to stay in line. Out and around Lakaija and up towards Bonk Sabadell. Just setting up and staying with him, staying patient. We are only 12 minutes into this race, so there is time left for him to do something.
And here comes David Holland. He's mad, and he's going to go underneath Don Bowden and pick off a position. Let's give a shout out to Don Bowden as well. He, even though he's just lost a couple of spots, he's still up several positions from where he started. But yeah, David Holland is about to be a very interesting driver to watch because he wants to take back some of those 12 positions that he lost, and he's got a lot of cars right in front of him to pass.
Back to the battle that we were watching before. Mitchell was looking at Henriquez, and he forced an error out of him. Henriquez going way wide. He stays off to the side, and that's going to mean that he can't do anything to defend off Mitchell, who now goes to the inside of Renault. Maybe he could re-attack coming up to Repsol, though. He's right behind him. Henriquez doesn't poke his nose out. A little bit of a look from John Ambrose as well, but he gets chopped off at the apex.
Another driver just put it in the wall a moment ago, Timothy Hargraves. That's going to add to our list of retirements. We've had quite a bit of attrition here early on, Joe.
Yeah, you mentioned Hargrave. Dunnigan's in again. Derlicka is out. Garrido is out. And Eisler is still taking repairs. We're not sure if the Iceman is intending to return to the track to see what points he can salvage.
I would. I mean, he's third in the points. He's not too far back. He is. And Kostev had a couple of attendance issues. Well, and Pfeffer have all had attendance issues. He had the bad race last round at Silverstone. Even though the points were there for the taking, he ran into some trouble. We've had some attrition early on here. So if I was Eisler, I'd get out there and see what points I could salvage, pick off a few positions from these cars who have hit misfortune. And like you just mentioned a moment ago, Joe, still a long ways to go. We might not be done with a little bit of carnage, unfortunately, but hopefully we're going to see some great racing out here too. And there's a lot of it, hopefully, about to take place right here. Cut all the cars together going down the front straight.
Yeah, we've been following this battle for a couple laps now. And you mentioned the different makes of cars. We got 3 of the different ones represented right here. Mitchell in a Porsche, and you've got Henriquez racing in a Ford, and Ambrose racing in a Ferrari. Another look from Henriquez trying to get that spot back from Mitchell. That didn't work out through Elf. We'll be joined by some friends soon because David Holland is also behind Carollo, who himself is less than a second behind John Ambrose. This could be a 5-car train relatively quickly.
That's nice to know that these guys are good.
And Jeff Carollo a little bit wide down through Seat there. Obviously feeling the pressure from the Ferrari behind, who we ride on board with right now. Much cleaner there through David Holland, the number 18, continuing to close the gap. Set something up down through here. He's going to try and get a good launch, but it's just not there.
Is in a part of the track. Oh, a mistake from Elijah Mitchell at the front of his train, and that's going to bottleneck them all up.
He went way wide down through Lacaja. Henriquez couldn't quite squeak through in time, but look at how close they are to one another now. All 3 of them separated by less than a second, and John Ambrose now the one to make a mistake as he almost got into the back of Henriquez. That cost him time, and now he's under attack from Carollo.
So this is 10th all the way back to 14th, 5 cars in total, and the place we might see a pass here is Carollo on John Ambrose for 12th place. Sticks his nose out again, but nothing happening. John Ambrose able to defend that position in his Ferrari.
As that was happening, we had a change for position for 7th spot. Fredes finally got past Peterson, and it was into that first corner.
We'll
take a look at how that happened.
Yeah, we'll get a quick look at this. But when we come back, Acosta has made a mistake and just lost 2nd place, Joe. Here's how to do it the easy way, and let's continue this replay after watching this pass for 7th, because not too long after this, I think this was a slowdown penalty we're going to see here, Joe. Acosta makes a mistake, runs off course a little bit, and that ends up yielding a position from Bacigalupo. It's a couple of turns into the future from where we are now.
Yeah, Acosta is the one you see in the black and the red, with the Bacigalupo in the green, white, and red Ferrari. I'm guessing it's going to be out of Worth here, where you can go a little wide. Yeah, it certainly looked like it there. Maybe it wasn't a slowdown. Maybe it was just that curb. Certainly bounded over it. So.
All right. So, yeah, what can Lucas do, Joe? Because I think he's been impatient for the last few laps. He's been hounding the back of Abner's car. Can he run down Christopher for the lead?
That one won't be representative with the fighting. And indeed, it was a little bit slower. It was a 41.3 for Bacigalupo. So this time around will finally give us a feel for whether or not he is quicker or at least on pace with Pfeffer.
Now, my concern for Bacigalupo is he had to make a pass through the twisty parts. He's been wanting that lead for a little while, and he hasn't been able to do it on the straights. That tells me that, for whatever reason, he doesn't have the straight line speed of Acosta, and if that is the case, does that mean Acosta will easily be able to get second back from him on the front straight? Could be in for a nice little scrap here for second place, but it won't help him catch a leader. However, Joe, these two can afford to... is that another slowdown from Acosta? He ran wide there, and no, it's not slowed down. It just cost him a bit of time. But these two can afford to do battle, Joe, because they've got 8 seconds over Todd Lewandowski, who I don't think we've mentioned at all, but he's gone from 8th to 4th this race.
Yeah, this is honestly punching above the belt for Lewandowski. He's usually a mid-packer from what I remember seeing him most of the season. And a 4th place will be a huge haul of points for the number 172. And a podium might not be off the cards if something happens to the top 3. Speaking of which, checking the times this time by for Bacigalupo, a 40.7. That's actually not really any faster than what we've seen from most of his laps thus far when he was stuck behind Abner Acosta.
Yeah, so good battle for second here. I think things might have spilled over in that mid-pack battle we were watching because David Holland's all the way back to 17th now, which is even lower than where he was after his first spin.
I found the lap where it happened. I don't think we can get the replay. Oh, yeah, it was car contact. He got in it with Carollo, and it was into Repsol corner. Both of them went off track and returned. But it's been a sloppy day for the number 18.
We have had a lot of drivers who have benefited from the sloppy days, Joe. I mean, Batti Gallupo, 6th to 2nd so far. Ignacio Fredes, 12th to 6th. John Ambrose, 19th to 11th. There have been some big gainers through all this carnage.
I guess keeping it on the black stuff is one of the ideal strategies out here as we continue to watch Holland try to make up for that. And who was that off track? That was Rodriguez, who's going to lose the spot to both Carollo and Holland. Don't forget, it was Holland who got into the back of Carollo that lost them those positions a couple laps ago. So I'm not sure that Jeff is particularly looking into the mirrors and smiling right now. I'm sure he'd like to put himself away from the number 18. And we should be starting to get into the pit window now, if we haven't entered it already. This is a great run from Holland this time. Oh, as that is happening, Peterson loses another one. It's Cal Quinn this time who gets by. Leif Peterson not looking good on race pace.
Yep, so that drops him back to 8th position. Cal can make that happen on the front straight. Yeah, we've mentioned in the past, Joe, that short pitting isn't always a desired strategy, as John Ambrose has just made a pass on Elijah Mitchell, but it hasn't stuck yet. He's on the outside as they go down the hill. Ambrose having to do it the long way around. He's a professional racing driver, though, so he should be able to pull this off, and he's going to be able to pull this off. Gets a nice run out of a corner, better top-end speed, and beats Elijah Mitchell, but goes wide. Could that be a slowdown?
I think he's safe. It looks like he managed to get it out of there without Elijah Mitchell having an opportunity to sneak through, but a top 10 now for the double aught. It took him a while with both Mitchell and Henriquez close to him for a number of laps. We look back from Ambrose. He's got about 3 seconds to make up to Thurman, the next car up. Still not seeing many in for, or anyone, if anything, in for an early stop. Already in these first few corners, Ambrose looking like he's starting to pull away. But what about Peterson? He might want this spot back, and he's certainly looking close to Cal Quinn. He's coming up to him, but he's going to duck back to the racing line as Cal Quinn takes a slightly defensive early turn-in down into Elf.
Calkin running where he started in 7th. I think it's a rarity today of cars left where he started, but holding down the fort pretty good down there as the track really under heavy shade now. Now, of course, Joe, these drivers won't have to take tyres when they come into the pits. It's only an hour-long race. You don't really need tyres for these GTE cars. And it's a cooler track, you know, when you're stopped stationary for 10 seconds, your tyres will lose their temperature. That could create a couple of spills when they come back out onto the track after their pit stop. Again, don't think we'll see many people short pitting unless they think they're being held up or if they've got damage. Acosta hasn't elected to short pit. But what about this? As we continue to watch the scrap between Calkin and Peterson, if Peterson feels that he's being held up, does he come in at the end of this lap?
Well, they're getting close to that pit entry, so let's watch. We ride on board with Leaf, still chasing down Horatio. The 666 is now going to take it through Europe car into the very tight, slow chicane that we've been watching these cars struggle through. Neither of them heads on in.
Ever since Bacigalupo got second, Joe, he's been losing like half a second a lap to the leader, but we'll talk about that in a moment because that battle was still brewing. Peterson getting alongside Cal Quinn here, Joe.
Yeah, up along the outside as Cal Quinn goes defensive down into the first corner. And he's nice and tidy under the braking, so there's not going to be an over-under opportunity for Leif Peterson. Don't look now, though. Behind them, you might have seen a green and black car start to get closer and closer. That is Brett Thurman, who is stalking them and considering whether or not he could maybe get involved here.
He's probably one of the drivers that has had the quietest race today. We'll keep on these battles in the midfield, but I just wanted to mention about Bacigalupo. He's been... Whoa, here we go.
Bit of a mistake down through Seat there as they now work their way towards Worth. And still Peterson not able to do anything with it, but this continues to bring Brett Thurman closer and closer out through Campsa. Kaufman maybe going to open the door again for him. No, he's got the car underneath him now. That Ferrari nice and solid. And looks like Peterson's going to have to try again later.
Yeah, all right. Maybe these drivers can keep not battling each other, going through the twisty parts for me, the finishing point here. Bacigalupo has been losing about half a second a lap to Pfeiffer ever since he took second. But interestingly enough, he's continued to pull away from Acosta. Acosta's not been able to match it at all. Now I finally got my point out as this a battle for the midfield comes onto the front straight. Let's see who makes the pass this time around.
I think they've separated themselves. We've jumped back to Holland because he managed to just get by Swaby recently. Don't need a replay on that one, as that was easily done down in Lakaja. Back on Peterson now. Once again, it looks like Thurman just steadily making gains. He's down to 0.6 of a second now. We could see the mirrors from Peterson from up here. We could definitely see the number 69 start to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, 11th place might soon be 4 over. Elijah Mitchell holding it down right now. Luis Enriquez thinking about what to do about it.
Wow, Peterson got awful close to the back of Cal Quinn down through Seat. Now hitting Worth. This has been another struggling spot. A lot of drivers having problems exiting. Not so for these two this time. Peterson in his Porsche looking like he's at least getting the grip off the corners with all the weight on those rear tires, especially right there. Wow, very wide for Cal Quinn. Obviously starting to feel a little bit of this pressure.
Yeah, Peterson has had an eventful race, but it's been going in the right direction, 10th to 8th. And he's got a better line through this final chicane, I think. Although, did he get a little bit squirrely on the power there? Whatever happened, it looks like he's a bit further back of Calkin, and nothing will happen this time around.
Up to second place, Acosta's regained about half a second on Bacigalupo, and I'm not sure if this was a mistake from Bacigalupo or if Acosta just turned the afterburners on here.
I'm gonna say the second, Drew, because like I say, ever since Bacigalupo got second, he hasn't been that fast, and I was surprised Acosta wasn't hounding him, saying, okay, let's have me back at the front of his train again. But now Acosta's finally got his car back under him, and honestly, at this rate, he'd be my favourite for second, because he seems to have had done a better job of this.
Oh, and we had a problem with John Ambrose. Did he find the wall? I think he did. Oh, and that another driver making mistakes multiple times. Remember, he lost positions earlier. Or no, excuse me, I think I might be thinking of his teammate Holland. Oh, and he backs into traffic once he has this slide that you see there.
Yeah, that's a precarious position because, yeah, it's not great timing there. The thing is he might have thought his car was kind of on the racing line. You know, the back end of it was sticking out on the racetrack, and you know, it would have been safer just to keep it there, but it was a bit of a dangerous position. Fortunately, there wasn't any contact between him and other cars, and he's been able to continue. But the battle for second is shaping up, Joe. Acosta wants that second place back, and he might try and do it around the outside. I don't think that was planned. I think he was trying to do a crossover there, and it didn't work out.
Yeah, as he went way wide through Renault. Thankfully, even though he was out in the marbles, he didn't spin the car. We have had a couple takers on early stops now. Rodriguez has finished his. I see.
Sorry, Joe, Calkin had a big off at the first corner. He basically shortcut it, but he slowed down through all the gravel and everything, I assume, and it cost him 2 positions. He was in 7th, he's down to 9th. So he was trying to go defensive here. Oh, and that was a bit of a slide too.
Yeah, I think he lost control on the entry from what we saw on the replay there. So both spots go away. That's going to give the position to both Thurman and Peterson, 7th and 8th for each of them. Definite damage on the hood of Calquin. In fact, there is no hood on Calquin that we saw there in those shots.
I wonder if anyone's ever painted their hood up like an engine to confuse the competitor in front. No, I don't have to worry about him. He's damaged.
Give it a try and tell me how it goes. See if it gives you an advantage. Meanwhile, we ride on board with Thurman. And did something happen to Swaby? I think John Ambrose got by him for the second time this race. And I think this happened down into Lakaija. Actually, you know what? I don't think we need a replay for this. I think Swaby intentionally handed the position over. Going to watch it on my screen.
Yeah, of course, Ambrose has had to make all these passes once already, but it's not because he made a mistake earlier, it's because he qualified poorly. And even though he had a big error, obviously, we saw what happened to him, he's still running ahead of where he qualified.
I suppose you could count the a bad qualifying as a mistake, just not in this session. But semantics as we watch our leaders continue on. Speaking of which, we do have a leader in this race. We haven't shown him for a while. Christopher Pfeffer, 7.5 seconds up now, up at the very front. There you see him in his Porsche. One last round after 2 bad races. And he's looking to repeat that with another victory unless something dramatic happens. I think it's a safe bet that he's going to achieve that.
Speaking of drivers who could be fighting for points, let's give a shout out to Christian Esther because he has gotten back out on track. Now, I mentioned this was a good decision because we had some attrition early. He'd be able to gain a couple of positions. The bad news, Faisal, is that attrition has not continued. We had a very ugly first 10 minutes where everyone was saying, hey, I don't want to finish this race. And then since then, people have been like, oh, well, I'm halfway through it now. Let's finish this then. And it's been nice and clean. We've had some great racing. It's good news for us, not good news for Faisal, who's stuck back in 26th place.
And it looks like Calquin finally got the spot back from Thurman. This took a couple corners to happen, really. Started with Thurman going wide through Lakaija. And I actually think he got a slowdown penalty from it. There you see the very tail end of it. And he's to the inside, I think trying to serve it. As there goes Calquin, and eventually he pulls off to the side, and it's easy pickings for the 666.
I wonder if people ever practice serving slowdown penalties. Like, what's the fastest way to deal with them? You know, that does the least amount of damage.
Lead it off. That's always the way to do it. At least that's the way I try and do it.
Carullo just got cross plate from Bowden. I think that's the second time we've seen Carullo go by Bowden in this race. He lost that position again earlier when he made a mistake.
A simple, nice out-braking maneuver into Elf for Carullo. That gives him 12th position. As we come back to Christopher Pfeffer, we're now down to 26 minutes left to go. There is still time in the window for pit stops. And as such, he's going to continue on. But it's getting tighter, and eventually he's going to have to bring it in. In fact, pretty much everybody will, because we've only had Mitchell and Rodriguez. Just 2 of them have pitted thus far.
Yeah, if I recall from last race, Joe, I think Pfeffer did a very good job at not only dominating the race, but saving fuel as he did at last race. So we're probably not going to see him in anytime soon.
This is true as we check out the battle for fourth now, just off the podium. They've continued to fall away. Low and Dick, your lead car there, with Fredes just behind him. It was Fredes fighting with, well, initially Peterson, I believe, long ago. And now has set his sights. No, excuse me. It was Romig and Lowendick, not Fredes. Excuse me. I was looking at my timing and scoring wrong. Romig, who is chasing him and is within a second of the 172. But Lowendick having fallen off by about 12 seconds. This is about the highest he can hope for, again, unless we get something unexpected from the top three.
Yeah, I'm sure after starting 8th, though, he'll take a 4th place. Problem is we've got over half a race to go, and he's got several cars behind him. Sean Romig is on his tail now, but if for whatever reason Lowendick has a bad stop and costs him 5-10 seconds, that'll throw him right in the thick of that mid-pack battle we've been watching all race. Or at least the front end of a mid-pack battle.
Yeah, and that, well, those battles have really spread apart from one another for the most part, I'd say. Calquin and Thurman are still relatively close to one another, but other than that, I'm looking down, and I'm seeing very few drivers that are within closer than 2 seconds to one another. Riding on board with Thurman now. That is Horatio in the 666 up in front. To give us an idea of just how slow these cars have to work their way through this chicane. Clipping, just barely clipping those curbs. Thurman trying his best to flirt with the sausage curbs. And back onto the front stretch.
I wonder if Calkin even knows his hood is missing. His car doesn't seem to be handling any worse for it.
For this being an aero track, I guess these cars really don't need that bit to go just as fast.
There's a great tweet on Twitter last week from Dale Earnhardt Jr., a former NASCAR driver. There's a photo of him racing at Martinsville, missing a whole front right fender once, and he said, "This made the race so much easier. We didn't have to worry about our front brake temperatures at all."
It's one way to look at it, I suppose. And looking up and down to see who have been some of our hard chargers. Carollo, I feel like, might have earned that one, who sits in 12th. Started in 21st, and he did put a qualifying time down. He's chasing a car who probably could have earned the hard charger if you counted just simply cars passed. And that is Holmes. We now ride on board with Bowden. This is another driver who's had to pass a lot of cars, John Ambrose. 13th position fight. Ambrose, who was awful close to the rear of that car down through Worth and Campsa, falls away exactly when he needs it and can't attack. Oh, maybe he can attack because that's way wide out for Bowden. And John Ambrose back up to 13th now.
Yeah, there are a lot of drivers that could unofficially be leading the Hard Charger Award. I think a driver who's officially leading it, as will come back up to second place, where Costa's still hounding Bacigalupo. The driver who I think is officially leading the Hard Charger right now is probably Donald Olsen, who was up 8 positions from 27th to 19th. He just lost one of those and went back to 20th, but still a driver that's kind of flown under the radar so far today.
Ooh, we got a couple of cars who have flown into the pits. Thurman is one of them, and Carollo as well. Now, Mitchell is our highest pitter, and I think he's going to get out ahead of these two quite easily. Thurman is coming on out. Mitchell's got speed up. There's Carollo as well, exiting. Now Thurman will be the highest bidder as he manages to exit ahead of Mitchell.
Yeah, and do not underestimate the chaos element that this pit exit can throw in there. Basically drops drivers on pit exit out right in the inside line, ready to battle in turn 1. I kind of like it.
Oh, Bowden had a problem in Seat. This was just after he lost that spot to Ambrose. This is a single car incident. You're going to see the rear of this BMW, unfortunately, try to swap ends.
Bacigalupo is the first of our up front leaders to make a pit stop. Now, of course, he'll be hoping for a good stop here, Joe, with no mistakes, because he is in a pretty tight fight with Abner Costa. Not only will he be hoping for a good stop, he'll be hoping for clear traffic and exit.
Romig also came in behind him. Bacigalupo already exiting. The Ferrari is free and gone, and he'll return in 7th position as well. So with clear track ahead of him, the 23 is looking pretty dandy right now, I'd say.
Yeah, this is great track position for Lucas Bacigalupo. Not only did he get out ahead of Luis Rodriguez, but he's got a few seconds up the road before he would catch Horatio Calkin, so he'll be able to put a clean lap in. Abner Costa also, of course, has a clean racetrack now. Really haven't seen a whole lot of lap traffic so far this race, Joe. That might change in the second half of the race, so, as the pit stop cycle and the field spreads out.
There's only 20 minutes left to go, so Pfeffer's probably going to need to come in now, as I think the next car up. Yep, indeed, Pfeffer's in. So the 66 ducks down pit lane. He wasn't close to catching traffic, but he didn't want to stay out too much longer, or else he would run into it. Settles down towards his pit stall. Acosta, interestingly, stays out, though.
Yeah, so I wonder if Acosta's been able to save fuel so far this race. That, of course, means he might be able to make a bit of a shorter pit stop when he comes in for his only stop, and that could help him beat Bacigalupo in that battle. Ted Lowendick also into the pits.
Yeah, that was Acosta's MO earlier in the season. I hadn't thought about that he could have been just trying to cruise around and save a bit of fuel with a little bit of lighter right foot. Pfeffer is back out. Bacigalupo obviously slots in behind him.
Yeah, Pfeffer has came out behind Fredes, and he'll be hoping, I'm sure, not to get held up too much by that. But obviously he had an 8-second lead at the start of this all, so got more cars in the pit straight.
Oh, and Romig just got Lowendick in that battle. I believe it was Ted who was in front of him before the pit stops, and that has leapfrogged around. So that should effectively give 4th to Sean as they work their way around Repsol now. I can tell you that lots and lots of drivers have come in since these two have now exited. Pretty much everybody decided that was as far as they could go here in this race before they needed fuel.
Acosta coming in. All right, so here's one of the top battles we wanting to watch, Joe, is Acosta versus Bacigalupo. Acosta's had a clear track. As long as he has an okay stop, he should be able to take less fuel than Bacigalupo might have done, and maybe pull away by a second or two for second place.
Bacigalupo just heading through the final chicane right now, and Acosta's in his stall. Drivers have been doing about 12 second stops. Acosta with a quick stop, 10 seconds, 11 seconds rather. So definitely try to save some fuel. And Bacigalupo is just now coming by the pit exit as Acosta is getting up to speed. It's tight, but Acosta is ahead.
All right, now how's this going to play out? Because remember, at the start of this race, Bacigalupo was behind Acosta, and he was all over the back of him. It wasn't really until he got out at the front of the train that he started to make mistakes himself, but then again, he was able to hold on to the position ahead of Acosta. So this is going to be interesting, this battle for second, seeing how this unfolds between now and the checkered flag in about 15 minutes' time.
So Duhamel falling down the order because he's taken his stop finally. Albright, the last driver to need a pit stop. So that's going to be everybody now on sequence. But we can't disregard Calquin, who keeps giving us lots of action. And who else is it going to be with? but Henriquez, who he was battling earlier, as well as Thurman. Now, wasn't Thurman ahead of these two? Sounds like I'm wrong here. He was a little bit behind them, but he did catch them slightly since the pit stops.
Honestly, Joe, so much has happened in the midfield today. I can't remember the order.
Yeah, they've swapped around a ton. That's for sure. Out through camps, these three are going to stay in order, though. No opportunity to try and get by between Henriquez, Calquin, and Thurman. Since we've finished the pit stops now, though, and I don't think this battle looks like it's about to erupt, why don't we run down our top 10 just to refresh everybody about what's been going on in this race. So heading up to our leader, the number 66, put it on pole and pulled the gap almost immediately. Hasn't looked back since. This is starting to look pretty similar to what we saw at Silverstone, as we unfortunately lose his connection for a little bit. So we'll go away from Pfeffer. Acosta, who is behind him, was in second for a while, being chased by Bacigalupo. Acosta had an incident very early on with some contact with Garrido. Didn't seem to hurt him too much, even though he lost position, saved fuel, jumped Bacigalupo in the pits, and got second back. Bacigalupo, the reverse story, of course, made the pass, was pushing more air, wasn't saving fuel enough, and had a little bit of a slower stop. He came out of the pits directly behind Acosta, and now the fight is on to settle out the podium. Behind them, off the podium, it's been a long gap. It is now up to 17, almost 18 seconds to Sean Romig, who we ride on board with. He's got something to worry about, because in the pit stops, he also made a leapfrog maneuver. That was over Ted Lowendick. He was behind him, still running in the top 5. Not a bad day for the number 172, considering he qualified in 8th and usually isn't this high up in the field. What's the next 5 look like, Sam?
Well, in 6th position, we have Ignacio Fredes. A lot of these drivers in the back half of the top 10 have had incredible days where they've gained several positions on where they started. Leif Peterson currently sits in 7th position as well. He's up from 10th to 7th place. And we've got a battle just outside the top 10, though, Joe. Holland and Mitchell side by side as David Holland tries to work his way back up through the field. Remember, he was in 4th before the earlier mistake. Well, now he's passed back up to 11th. The cars he'll be trying to get by include Luis Henriquez in 8th place, leading the train of 3 cars right now. He's up 5 spots from where he started. Horatio Calkin has gone the wrong way a little bit, and you can see right on the front end of his car. He had an off at turn 1 and 2 earlier that damaged the front end of his machine. And Brett Thurman currently rounds out the top 10, but how much longer will he hold on to that? Because the next car behind him is Holland.
Holland, who has been on a charge and has made a ton of passes, has got some work to do. It's 3.3 seconds up to Thurman with 13 minutes left. Not impossible, especially with the pace that Holland has been showing. Ride on board with David, coming around and out of Renault up to the hard braking of Repsol. Still being chased by Mitchell, who he recently passed. They've got behind them, this is worth a mention, 3rd in the championship, Christian Eisler still out there. 16 laps down from the leader, 14 laps down from the next car up. That's Stacey Dunnigan. And I'm pretty sure we have less than 14 laps to go, so at this point, Christian probably will want to either park it or be sure to stay out of everybody's way, since there's not much more he can do.
Yeah, the 3 cars behind Eisler out of a race with only 12 minutes left. Yeah, there's not going to pass anyone else. So 25th place for Christian Eisler. We'll be hoping to take us as a drop week. I don't think he's missed a race so far this season, but I could be wrong on that.
I don't think he has either. And the answer is no, he has not. This will definitely be his worst result. Up until now, consistency was his friend. Even though he hadn't won a race yet, he was, I think he was every race in the top 5, I want to say. Certainly was looking good, but we've been watching this battle that is also looking good. Acosta leading Bacigalupo. The good news for Lucas, Sam, he's done this once. He knows how to do it. The question is, can he execute?
Yeah, well, the bad news is he only did it because Acosta made a mistake. I feel that Acosta Bacigalupo wasn't able to make a pass down the front straight earlier. That tells me Acosta's getting a better run down that front straight, or maybe has a better top speed with his setup or his car or whatever. And that's the kind of mistake Bacigalupo needs him to make. So Acosta just needs to try and not do that for 11 laps.
Now, last time it was down through Worth that he had that happen. Bacigalupo now within about a car length through this slower technical portion. Oh, and he's going to make a sneak attack, and he gets through down into the chicane. What happened there?
It almost looked like Acosta just gave it to him. Oh, well, hold on. Let's see what happens here, because is Acosta going to get him back down the front straight? He's going to have a slipstream. He's tucked up behind him. He has a bit of a top speed advantage, but he's running out of racetrack, and I think Bacigalupo will beat him into turn 1. He goes defensive just to make sure, and the number 23 stays ahead for now.
Here's another question. As let's take a glance at the replays, because that will maybe answer one of these questions. It was a second quicker in the pit stop for Acosta. Is he may be thinking, I'm short on fuel, I got to duck in behind and try and save a bit now. That does look like he kind of handed it over from that angle. Slowed a lot.
Well, if fuel is an issue, the good news is he has 18 seconds over the next car in line. Yeah, it was really bizarre.
Back. He's losing time here. Oh, we got a car off course.
Stacey Duncan, he got a little bit loose through that corner. He's running a lap down, 2 laps down actually.
Yeah, they are coming up on lap traffic. We haven't talked about that Pfeffer's already lapped Albright and Schilling. Next on his list is Donald Olson, but it's not really offered much in the way of drama. Not the same way we've seen drama out of David Holland, who's now looking on Thurman.
Yeah, I think this is the next battle about to happen, just because of a pace difference. Nothing against Thurman, but Holland should be up there in the top 5 if he hadn't made a mistake early in this race. Here's a potential passing opportunity. After this right-hander, Thurman gives the apex a bit of breathing space. Holland doesn't. He runs right up on it. No, not going to do anything here. He's going to wait his time, wait around to the front straight, or maybe even that final chicane if he's watching our broadcast off to the side and he's like, oh, I can do that.
I tell you what, this has been an impressive gap that he has closed down. Remember, it was 13 minutes left when I said that he's got 3.5 seconds to make up. Well, it's only 9 minutes, little less than 9 minutes left as he almost makes contact with the back of Thurman. That's how you don't make the pass through the last chicane.
Yeah, and you see that way too... did Thurman get slowed down? No, he's just gone all the way over to the side to try and break a draft, yeah. Yeah, there's something that annoyingly happens way too often, even in Formula 1, professional Formula 1 races. The drivers get way too close to the car ahead, going through that chicane, they have to back ride out, and then they can't make anything happen down the front straight. So, honestly, that's a mistake on Holland, and he's got to try and not do that again.
Well, he's going to remake that time up. He was a lot closer when we first joined this. And it's now down to 0.4 of a second. Not missing anything up at the front. This is our closest battle here within the top 10, or what will be the top 10 for Holland, at least, if he can make the move. And down towards Worth. Tiny little kink in the braking zone for these cars, and then accelerating back up the hill, and there's the pace difference right there as Holland once again making himself very large in our gearbox cam.
This time he might do it, yep. He keeps his nose in there. Thurman, once again, too wide at the apex. Thurman has been given the apex a bit of space. It's been working for him. He's been running up in the top 10, but when you got Holland hungry behind you, it doesn't work out too well. So where's Holland now? He is 3 seconds behind Calkin, no-hood Calkin for 9th position, and I think he'll be able to catch him by race end.
Yeah, if the way he caught Thurman is anything to go by, 6 minutes should definitely be enough time. But catching is one thing, passing is another. Just ask Abner Acosta and Bacigalupo. In fact, wow, Acosta's back by 2 seconds now.
Are you saying passing is like milking a GSRC rooster available on the GSRC online superstore, Joe? We sell roosters there, correct?
I'm
Okay,
afraid
maybe
we
we
don't. Gonna get us in trouble making up products. We don't tell fibs on this channel, Sam. Come on now. Meanwhile, on screen, thank you, director. Meanwhile, as we continue to watch part of our podium try to get this worked out, I really am starting to suspect that Acosta had something go wrong with his fuel calculations.
I mean, even if so, this is a great day for Acosta in the points.
It really is. Nobody battling with him. Like we see battling here between Heb and LeBlanc. This is down for 19th position. Looking maybe for the over-under there. LeBlanc going defensive down into Seat, but it's going to be successful, at least for the moment. Heb takes another go at it, sticks his nose in down into Worth, and again, this is hard to go too wide. He almost clips the back of LeBlanc, but they both make it out the other side. But yeah, the point that you were making as we continue to watch this battle is that Pfeffer and Bacigalupo are not in the points battle with Acosta, and those are the only two beating him today. So this is a net gain for Acosta.
If I could be, he keeps kind of based up that drop week at the end of the season. And, you know, Diaz and Acosta miss a couple more races, but Acosta's not missing this race. He's here, he's on the podium, he's going to get a good amount of points, and that's going to give Diaz some work to do.
Pearson really the only other driver high in the points who's faring well today. Holland, who is up there in the points, is, well, he's recovered, but this is still a pretty miserable day for him if he gets 10th or 9th. Peterson only looking at the 7th himself. So he's going to turn the points a little bit on its head. Oh, and Henriquez just had an off. That's going to gift a spot to Holland, as well as, I believe, Calquin. This is all on his lonesome.
Just late in the race, fatigue getting to you, and nice little 360 there. These GT cars aren't always easy to get to speed after a decent.
That drops him to 10th position. Yeah, just outbraked himself into Worth and has to drag it through the dirt, get it back on track. Thankfully drops all that gunk off the racing line.
So Pfeffer just crossed the line a few moments ago with 4 minutes 10 seconds left in the race. That means we have 3 laps left to go as all these drivers cross the line. Here is Pfeffer. Hasn't got a whole lot of screen time today, so give him some more.
Christopher leading by 11.1 seconds over Bacigalupo. I wonder if he's been managing his pace, though, because wasn't it a little bit higher than that a bit ago? What if we could look at the lap time comparison between the 66 and the 23? Don't think it's anything that could affect the finishing positions right now. There you see up on screen right there. Well, Bacigalupo only gained on 1 lap, and even then it was only a 10th. Otherwise, it looks like Pfeffer is still outrunning him and still pulling away. So, false alarm.
2 laps left to go for Pfeffer now. He's crossed the line, heading down into the first corner one more time. So.
Meanwhile, Duhamel and a nice little bite with Rodriguez. Kenny, one of those that also lost spots early in the race. This is for 16th position. As we watch this, I'm also been keeping half an eye on Holland and Calquin, because we thought that Holland would try and chase him down and pass him. Well, he's already just about got to him.
Yeah, I think this one is going to be over quite quickly. Calquin has made a bit of a mess exiting the final chicane, which is kind of a death sentence when you have another car behind you. However, Holland doesn't have a great run on him. And yeah, I don't see Holland beating him into the first turn. He's going to stick his nose out and make Kalkin think he's thinking about it. We've seen Kalkin already mess this up earlier on this race, but he gets it right this time. However, Holland sticking to his racing line a little bit better. Turn 4 is a pass opportunity. Starts with Hamilton and Rosberg. Hopefully, we'll see if Holland can do it a little bit cleaner. He's right on his gearbox now.
And I think that Holland knows he's not got many laps left. In fact, he's got about a lap and a half because Pfeffer is going to be taking the white flag here in a moment. Let's stick with this battle a little wide down there through Seat, and that's going to open the door. Holland gets his foot in. He's going to try and step through, but he's going to have to be late on the brakes, and he's not willing to try and make it too wide through Worth.
It is the final lap. Pfeffer has crossed the line. You see the graphic at the top of your screen telling you that. But let's keep our eyes on this because here's another passing opportunity. Holland says, I want to go down inside. Kalkin says, too bad. I'm in front. I'm on the inside, but Kalkin a bit early on the brakes. Holland going to try on the outside. He's got to be careful. Kalkin doesn't overshoot the turn. He doesn't. Holland takes the position, and that is 8th place.
Wow, what a pass from Holland. He's still got it. He may have fallen back down the order a couple times, but that gifts him 8th, and that's as high as he's going to go. Especially with him getting the white flag and there being 13 seconds up to the car ahead, because this man right here, Pfeffer, is going to say it's all over now. The clock has finished as he comes through Worth to finish the last half of a lap here today at Spain. Go ahead.
I think Holland's best bet, actually, is the guys in 6th and 7th tangle, because that's one battle we still have going on the final lap.
Acosta as well. We kept playing it up as though this isn't a good race for him. Well, I don't think it matters. It is damage limitation. He's still going to gain a gap in the championship. Pfeffer, if only he had showed up for the first 3 rounds, certainly looks like he could have been someone that was there to battle with Acosta and Diaz all season long. Took him a little bit of an adjustment to get used to the league, but I'd say he's used to it now because it is his 2nd win in a row and only his 4th race for Christopher Pfeffer.
Headlights still work too.
Bacigalupo is going to get 2nd place after missing out due to his speeding penalty last round. And then Acosta has to fall for 3rd, unfortunately.
A bit of a mistake from Peterson, got a bit of oversteer a couple of turns ago, Drew, and I think that will cost him 6 to Fedez.
It did indeed. Fedez is in 6th, and Peterson not able to respond in time. Cal Quinn now trying to hold off Henriquez. Oh no, and they both go around with a little bit of contact. And that was Mitchell who got into him. Thurman who had a little bit of a touch in there too. Wow, couple corners to go and disaster for a number of drivers. Eisler letting them through as he is laps down and doesn't have involvement with it. Carollo is going to take 13th.
So that Cal Kim was the one who came off worst of that. I think he was in 9th and he dropped to 13th place.
Last of our cars on the lead lap: Ambrose, Bowden, Rodriguez, Duhamel, Swaby, LeBlond, and Heb. So none of them battling. Let's take a quick look at the replay. Looked like the lightest of contact maybe between them. Yeah, just a tiny touch to the back.
Yeah, and then the problem for Henriquez there was that he was parked in the racing line, and fortunately that wasn't a lot worse than what it was.
Well, that is certainly going to raise a little bit of ire with it being right at the end and costing both of them positions. But we're going to come back after a short break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come to you with our unofficial results as well as driver interviews. But on screen, we're going to let you see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC.
iRacing, you wanted the best, you got them 4 abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated, the greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
Back to Barcelona. We just watched round 7 here in the PRL GTE Sportscar Series. And though we wondered whether Christopher Pfeffer could respond with his main rivals here, well, the answer is yes, with at least one of them. Pfeffer took the win today with Bacigalupo finishing in second after starting from 6th. That was a great climb from the 23. And Abner Acosta started in second, but unfortunately fell all the way to third. Just did not seem to have pace today. He was 13 seconds behind at the line compared to Pfeffer. Sean Romig, boy, we haven't really boosted him as well as we probably should have, from 9th to 4th for the 72, even though we also promoted the great drive from Ted Lowendick down there, taking 5th position. Ignacio Fredes takes P6 with Leif Peterson finishing in 7th. David Holland went the opposite direction of some drivers. 4th place on the grid, only 8th in the end after slipping back twice in the race. Brett Thurman takes 9th position, and Elijah Mitchell, who had contact with another driver at the end, finishes in 10th.
Most of the drivers on the second page had good races, including Yo 11 Luis Rodriguez. He started 13th and finished 11th, but it wasn't a good end. Involved in a little bit of damage there. Jeff Carullo, I believe, was our big mover through the field at the end of the day, 21st to 12th. He does this a lot. Other drivers, keep an eye out on that. When he gets to bad qualifying, he's still a threat. Horatio Calkin, he was one driver who went the wrong direction. He went from lucky 7 to unlucky 13 by the end of the things. John Ambrose, he started 19th, finished 14th, despite a spin which cost him several positions in the middle of the race. What could have been? Don Bowden was all the way back in 15th. He was also involved in the thick of things there in the midfield, where we saw battles going on all race long. Kenny Rodriguez, 22nd to 16th, a good race for him. And behind him, from 23rd on the grid, was Sean Duhamel, who came home in 17th place. Lyndon Swaby went the wrong direction in the number 100 machine. He fell down to 18th by the end. James LeBlanc, 007. James LeBlanc, 19th place at the end of the day. And the last car on the lead lap is James Sebb in 20th.
Donald Olson a lap down in 21st with Christopher Albright behind him in 22nd. But then you get to the drivers that are laps down because they had an even worse day, not because of lack of pace. Stacey Dunnigan, 2 laps down in 23rd after an accident early on. Gary Schilling also 2 laps down, 24th. Christian Eisler eventually got back out on track to try and recover positions. Only got a couple, wound up 25th. And Timothy Hargrave, Jesper Derlicka, and Diego Garrido were all DNFs today. We've got our winner ready to talk to us, Christopher Pfeffer, with win number 2 here at Spain. And Chris, we were kind of wondering on whether or not you could carry the form when you had some of the fast drivers back and actually attending, and considering Acosta return today, I feel like you gave us a big fat yes.
Yeah, it was. I was happy everyone showed up tonight, so it was a really fun race. And the car was amazing. And first off, guys, I got to thank the series sponsors, Simsa, and Butt Kicker for their continued support. Also, I want to thank my team, One Sim Motorsports, and our sponsors, GTR Simulators. But yeah, I gotta thank my teammate Elijah Mitchell because he helped me out tremendously with the setup. I didn't have one before I really joined the lobby, and he helped me out quite a bit for the race. And I definitely couldn't have won the race without his help.
We hear a lot in Formula One about how the setup is so important here. Do you credit that setup a lot with your pace here today? Do you think that was kind of critical to being up towards the front?
Yes, because in practice, in the 3 hour session before the race started, I was really struggling with the setups I had. And once he sent me his setup, I was able to make some small adjustments to suit the way I drive, and everything just flowed so smoothly after that.
Well, that is quite a story then to find out that things turned around so quickly and then gifted you the win there. Well, I shouldn't say gifted. You definitely had to work hard for it as the pace looked good. But you've got another more recent track here coming up with Monza being the next one, the next round, and another F1 track, actually. Do you think you can continue, make it a hat trick?
At Monza with the Porsche, that was going to be extremely hard. The Porsche's not that great down the straights. The Ferraris are really fast there, so it'd be shocking if I can manage to do it for three in a row. But we'll see. We'll try.
Well, there can sometimes be problems on the first lap into the first chicane, so you never know, and you can't put anything out. That was our winner, Christopher Pfeffer, taking victory here today for the second race in a row. And up next, I believe Sam has caught up with third place finisher and points leader Abner Acosta.
Yeah, Abner, congrats on the podium finish. Are you disappointed you didn't get second?
No. I'm okay with a third place finish. I made a lot of mistakes, so had a lot of X's to off tracks. So I was trying to be careful at the end. So no, I'm okay with a third place finish.
Yeah, good points, Day. Two things I want to talk to you about. Let's start with the early thing, the thing you probably don't want to talk about, and that is the calamity at the opening of a race. Can you talk us through the first few corners?
Yeah. Well, Diego's back, so I knew he was gonna be aggressive, and he did on lap one, turn one, of course. He sent it in there, and I think we just ran out of room. At least that's my point of view. And unfortunately there was a touch. I'm more sad for, I think Eisler got involved in that. Definitely did not mean to touch Diego, but to me it was just a racing incident. He just sent the car in there. It's a very difficult part of the track, and unfortunately we touched, and Eisler got involved. So apologize for that to Eisler.
But then after that, after you'd resettled and everything, you and Bassi Calupo had a pretty decent battle going all race long. Where were the parts you felt he had the edge over you, and where were the parts you were trying to beat him?
I think I might have had a better pace, but I just kept making continuous mistakes all over the track. And again, I got high up on the off tracks, and I was just trying to stay safe and just make it to the end. But I think I might have been a little faster, but it was just too many mistakes on my part today.
All right, so this is going to give you the points lead, I believe, with the third place finish and Diaz not being here. Can you tell us about Diaz? Do you know if he's coming back? He's still going to have a good old championship fight here?
Diaz is he's upgrading his equipment to like the ultimate thing you could get. So he's changing everything. So in order for him to do that, he had to sell his current stuff. But he has a great opportunity to upgrade. So I guess he just took it. So right now, that's a no right now. He's basically getting equipment as he's selling his things. So he might be back, might not be back. So far, I don't know.
It's working for you so far. Helps give you a little bit of a cushion in the points. Well, congrats on the podium day to Abner, today, Abner, and we look forward to seeing you back in action at Monza.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night, and see you next week.
Was Abner Acosta our third place finisher. I guess a bit disappointing for the neutral fan that we won't have that nice teammate battle that had started early in the season and was so tight up until today's race. But we are going to close up because we're getting tight on time here. So we have to thank our sponsors as well. The Simulation Motorsports Affinity, sponsoring this season of the PRL GTE Sports Car Series, can be found at simsa.net. Give them a check out and see if they can help you get involved with the world of sim racing. And also Butt Kicker. Thebuttkicker.com is where you can find their products. If you're a sim racer, you probably want to see if they can find something to help give you all kinds of feedback as you're racing because, well, you need all the feedback you can get here in the sim world. Also, thanks to iRacing for putting us on IESN. Make sure and subscribe. Again, all you got to do is click the big red button. It's that easy, and you won't miss a moment here on the iRacing Esports Network. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast. They're listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Sam, Sean, and Dougie. And of course, a big thank you to Rim Ambrosi, who is spotting for us behind the scenes. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel, Facebook, Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. And if you'd like to support the channel, go check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storenvy.com. The link is in the description below. The next race is going to be the Monza at the Grand Prix circuit. So they will have all those chicanes. That'll be Tuesday, November 5th at 9 p.m. Eastern, a week from now. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendars. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.